Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our next session. So they say don't work with animals or children, and now we're about to test that, and we're going to now work with Event Tech live. Hello. Oh, can you hear me? So I might be throwing Event Tech into the animals and children. Ah, I can hear you. Martin,
we can hear
is
you.
Martin around? We have some... Is that, you can hear us? Okay.
I can hear you.
So, hello. Welcome to the session. The session is on matchmaking. It's obviously a very important topic at the moment. It's all about personalization. And we're all talking about bringing people together. So how do we do that effectively? I'm actually just a panelist on this session today, but I've also got Stephan Forseilles, as you can see here, who's from Easyfairs. And Stephan, where are you based at the moment? Where are you coming in from?
At the moment, I'm in the Belgian countryside.
Hey, there you go. and Mykyta is from ExpoPlatform, the CTO at Platform, and this is your session, Mykyta, so take us away.
Thanks, Katie. So I really wanted to put this session together to kind of have a discussion about matchmaking, because it's something that's become a ubiquitously used word and a buzzword in the industry, and over the last couple of years, it's become sort of the hot topic of discussion. But there hasn't been enough discussion about what actually are we trying to achieve exactly, especially in the context of exhibitions, B2B exhibitions. Because I think that matchmaking in a B2B exhibition scenario is a little bit different to matchmaking in a environment when we're looking to just meet somebody who shares our interests. But there's an element of that, of course. So what I wanted to do is have a discussion with Katie and with Stephan, and then have as many questions and as much interaction as possible from you guys at the audience. So there is a link to Glisser here on the screen. Please ask your questions away, and we will ever so often pick them up and discuss with you. So I will kick off with a question for Stephan. So Stephan, my first question is that this word matchmaking, right? It's a word that's very, very much used, but what does it actually mean for you as an exhibition organizer? What does it actually mean when you say matchmaking?
Well, it means that we have to give people the opportunity to have a better access and a quicker access to what interests them. And we've been speaking about matchmaking in terms of visitor to exhibitor, but it's also visitor to visitor, exhibitor to exhibitor, and also people to products. It's not just people, it's also products, it's also things that people are interested in. So we see it as a very, very large term, which encompasses a lot of things, not just getting contacted by exhibitors who want to get a meeting with you.
Yeah, okay. And Katie, what do you think, in terms of the job of matchmaking, what do you think is the job of a matchmaking system based on what Stephan has just described? What are we trying to achieve? I mean, are we, as Stephan mentioned, we're trying to connect people, so that's clear. But are there other things we're trying to do? Are we trying to create deals, for example, on the spot? Is that one of the jobs of matchmaking?
I think for me and a lot of the organisers I work with, they're trying to create value and demonstrate value. Time out of the office is precious. We believe in exhibitions. We know that they work, and we need to sort of prove that value and bring that value to people and really help them connect. I think especially in the more digital world that we are, and I hate this word, but millennials coming through, they're used to being put together with things. Their whole lives they go onto shopping websites and Amazon, and there's things suggested to them, and they're sort of used to that process and natural in that process. And I think that we need to sort of embrace that in our exhibitions, so we can actually bring value and bring people together.
Cool, and I have a follow-up question for that, maybe again for Stephan. So one of the reasons why exhibitors go to exhibitions, I think, is to build their brand, right? So do you think a part of the matchmaking system's job is to help exhibitors build their brands? Or no?
I really believe matchmaking is something that should be, if possible, initiated by the visitor. Because we really have to turn things around, and we really have to think our events as being there to serve the visitors. We've been, I think, a little bit treating the visitors as the product for the past years, which I think is an error. So I don't think matchmaking has a huge job to do. I think the brand is important to get good matchmaking, but the opposite for me is not really the case.
What do you think, Katie?
I agree with Stephan. You know, it is all about the visitor, and if they're driving it, then it will become natural. And we're trying to get them in front of the exhibitor. I think sometimes I've used the app here, which has been great to engage people, but a lot of the time the exhibitors are so, unfortunately, on the sales front that they forget that actually they're trying to meet people, and actually they send out generic messages that just really, really hammer home their sales message. And actually what we're doing is trying to force or sort of implement something that should be quite natural.
Yeah. So you've brought us nicely into my next question, which is actually, what are some of the challenges in deploying or using a matchmaking system at exhibitions? And Stephan, maybe Stephan, you'd like to open this question.
For me, the biggest challenge is communication. How do you get people to know about it? How do you, because people attending an exhibition, both visitors and exhibitors, are already overwhelmed by a lot of communication from the organizers, from the exhibitors, and from everyone. If you have to add that on top, and then sometimes you have to download a separate app for that. We see a very, very low take-up of apps on shows historically. So it's very difficult to get everyone to participate if you don't have a very good communication and a system which is, it needs an app, but also maybe works in a mobile environment without an application.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that matchmaking systems, and this is for either one of you, do you think a matchmaking system needs to be sort of sticky? We need to have a way, obviously, for people to interact. They need to have something there that gets them to come back. What do you think, what is the thing that should get them to come back? I guess value, right? But what do you think is the main value of such a system? How can we make the system, where we don't need to send hundreds of thousands of emails to everyone saying, hey guys, log in and do the matchmaking, log in and do this, log in and fill in your profile, log in and search for people, book meetings. How do we overcome this challenge, do you think?
I'm not really, I'm not too sure on how we overcome that challenge, but I do know that it's a valuable one to overcome because the people who actually engage with the show. So, as a marketing person, you're always talking about how to change your pre-reg into converting them into actual attendees. That's one of our biggest challenges. And actually, people who are engaged with the show, people who book meetings, people who start to connect before they actually get here, those people are going to attend. Those are the buyers. They're the ones actually going to convert, and that's really, really important. So I think communicating is one of our challenges, but how we overcome that, I'm not entirely sure.
I'd like to come back on what Katie said before. I think what will drive more engagement is the relevance of what we do. And if we only communicate to our users in a relevant way and give very interesting suggestions for meeting people and we cut the spam, basically, I think it will be a huge leap forward in terms of getting people to actually use the applications.
So basically what you're saying, stop selling and start providing relevant content.
Yes, we're in the business of putting people together. We are not in the business of being a sales platform for exhibitors.
Yeah, and I think that's an easy trap to fall into as an organizer probably, because the exhibitors are the guys who pay you money and they expect certain results out of you, and so you try and further that, but there's a danger of going too far, and then suddenly you lose all interest.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said when I said that for years the industry has considered the exhibitor as the customer and the visitor as the product. I think we have to turn that around. Both visitors and exhibitors are our customers, and the products are actually what we show them on the show floor and what we talk about in sessions, in events.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting key point there. So I'm going to move on to a different question. So the question is about, we were talking about exhibitions in general, and that's actually quite a broad, even if we just take B2B exhibitions, that's a broad spectrum of industries there. So do you feel that the industry or sector area has influence on the dynamics of the job of matchmaking, or what it should be doing, or how it should be delivering things?
Yes, totally. I exhibited at Top Draw, a Clarion show recently, which is all about products. I mean, it's unreal. You've got so many buyers from really big companies who the buyers go around with their little books and they don't want to talk to any exhibitors. They just want to go around and they want to see the product. But they're searching for products. Whereas in other industries, say IBTM with a hosted buyer program, it's ideas, it's people, it's concepts. So it really should be led, as I mentioned it earlier on, tech for tech's sake is just terrible. It should really be led on what the challenge is for your exhibitors and visitors and how they interact on site, and that should be where you start, really.
Stephan?
Yes. As an industry, we didn't invent matchmaking. Matchmaking is something that a lot of other people are doing very well in different ways and for different purposes. And I think that, yes, we can influence the way it works, but we should look at what works best in other industries. People are finding the love of their life through matchmaking, and it works very well for a lot of them. And then we should look at these very, very easy to use and very user-friendly ways of doing matchmaking, and maybe be a little bit more like that, and less trying to make it our own way, which is the very traditional way of doing things generally.
Yeah. So, and you mentioned other industries, and I think it's a really interesting point and a key point. That, of course, this is not a specific and unique problem to exhibitions or events in general, or matchmaking is a problem that we encounter sort of when we go to the store. Right, and somebody's trying to pick the right product for you. That's a person picking out the right product, and they need to get and understand what you need. That's matchmaking. It's not technology-driven, but it's matchmaking. So,
what Amazon is doing when they propose your product is actually matchmaking with a product.
Exactly.
Not with a person, but with a product.
Yeah. So, this is a really interesting point, because then this brings us to the next challenge, that even in the real world, in other sectors, the matchmaking problem is actually not solved yet. So I'm sure everyone has an experience when you go to a website and you've been looking at some sort of products somewhere else, and suddenly the suggestions you're getting are something completely unrelated to anything you could be looking for, or something that you've bought 3 months ago but have forgotten, and suddenly, John Lewis is recommending vacuum cleaner or something like that.
And I had this exact issue. I'm in my 30s and I'm female, so apparently Mothercare likes to send me a lot of things, but also I have a lot of friends that are having babies, and actually the gift side. So if I'm talking about a retail side, you visit random websites to buy gifts for people. Then all of a sudden you get lots of spam about all these things that you should be buying, and I think that they're still working through it. I recently went to visit Mothercare site, and when I was buying it, when I actually made that purchasing decision, they asked if it was a gift and whether I would like to receive any information. And then I did those, opted out, and I haven't received anything from them. It's a very different experience. So you're right. I don't think lots of other industries have got the answer, but they're learning, and I think they're learning quicker than perhaps we are at the moment.
Something we aim to change, I think.
The key to relevance is data and algorithms, and they're getting better all the time, and we're getting more data. We have to make sure that we worked with the GDPR and other related regulations for that, because it's sometimes not easy to get all the data we need to make a valid matchmaking. But as Katie said, data is key, and it's getting better all the time.
So you opened the next question actually, which is about data and about the fact that I think one of the challenges of providing relevant matchmaking to people is actually the lack of data. And the fact that at the moment what we're very, very focused on is collecting the registration questionnaire, which is great, but it's actually not enough information for us to make any kind of informed, relatively good decision on what that person actually needs.
That's because we ask terrible questions.
Is that the only problem?
Why on earth are we asking? You might have a marketing assistant who has been in the job for 6 months, and they're coming to your trade show to learn about the industry. So why on earth? How are they going to know what their company's annual turnover? It's why they don't even know the answer to that.
Is your budget going to increase this quarter for this product?
Exactly. They're not even the purchaser, but they're a very relevant visitor. That doesn't. Why are we asking?
Then again, those questions are most of the time related to the fact that we want to please our exhibitors and give them the information they want about the visitors, not the one we need to provide a good experience.
Yeah, and actually that data is available in other sources. Yeah. So if we really wanted to provide really good data for our exhibitors and prove the relevance of our show, we'd go and find that post-show. I think, Stephan, was a part of a session yesterday about event registration, and that was one of the key things that came up yesterday.
Yeah, definitely.
So, moving deeper into the subject of data, I think, and touching on something else. So when a matchmaking system is deployed, obviously it should have value. And as an organizer, I'm sure it's of utmost importance to be able to understand and demonstrate the value of that system to yourself internally, but also to your exhibitors, and probably with GDPR, even more importantly, to your visitors, right? So what are some of the metrics, or what are some of the ways in which you would think it makes sense to evaluate a matchmaking system, what is delivering and what it's not delivering and what it should be delivering?
Yeah, I think one of the first metric is that how people react to the suggestion you make to them. If they say no to 95% of the suggestions you make, then probably you're not doing very well in terms of doing these suggestions. And then how many meetings actually do happen? That's another important metric. But then again, I think the best metric for all systems is how much people use it and how much people use it on the second time you use it, and in the long term, how sticky it is with them and how active they are on the system.
Do you think it's an iterative process to work out what are the metrics and how do you improve them? Do you think we can sort of over-optimize on the metrics also by just looking at, we come up with a set of criteria and we look at them and we say, okay, we're going to go and make sure everybody books as many meetings as possible, and then it turns out that actually this is a poor measure of quality in the longer term.
We might be overthinking. We might be overthinking the metrics, and I think the best metric for every system and every product is how people use it and how much they use it.
So do you think there's a process for example, if you're an organizer who hasn't deployed any matchmaking, right, and you're deciding whether you should do it or not do it, and then if you do it, how do you evaluate that it's worked? Do you think there's a process that one can follow, sort of step by step? This is what my metrics are going to be. This is what I want to deliver, and this is how I'm going to measure it? Or
I think you should find your own stuff, because every show is different. Every audience is different. Every audience reacts differently. You probably have a very different reaction from the audience here at Event Tech Live, where you would have in a very industrial shows where you are promoting pumps and valves, like some of the ones we do. So you have to think what works for your show, and you should avoid to try to say that one size fits all for the metrics, definitely.
And I think with the metrics as well, you can sit there and look at the spreadsheet and look at the numbers, but actually you need to look on your show floor, how are people interacting, speak to your visitors, speak to your exhibitors, and actually get, actual anecdotal feedback. Yeah, it's not great because people, they're not always going to say what they honestly feel, but sometimes you hide behind the numbers too much, or it's just not a great measure of success always.
Are there things, this leads us into kind of the next discussion, which is, are there sort of things that we're not looking at, not capturing, but we should be capturing? Is there data we're not collecting, but we should be collecting? Are there questions we're not asking, but we should be asking? What do you think about that?
I think one of the biggest source of information that we could have is what people actually do on the show floor. And which people we meet which people during the show, and we start with technologies to do that, even though also we have to do with the regulations and make sure that everything is very, very clear and very, very well explained to the attendees of the show. But I still think that what people put in questionnaires is always very bad quality. And we should really rely on what they do on our website, what they do when they look at our catalogs, what they do on the show floor, instead of relying on questions we ask them when they are completely fed up answering questions in the registration.
And I agree. And I think that if you are going to ask questions in a survey, actually ask questions that you can then solve the issue to. I think, I get laughed at quite a lot because in post-show surveys, which, how that's a whole topic in itself. But post-show surveys, you need to be asking questions about the visitor's experience. How was their experience getting into the venue? How were the toilets? How did they find the information they need? People think that it's quite boring questions. When I worked on London Book Fair, we had a really low visitor satisfaction score. And it turns out, when we did our research, is that actually we had terrible toilets. Terrible. Absolutely awful. But that's something that you can really, really, really quickly change. We spoke to the venue, we put new measures in place, and our visitor satisfaction score went up massively the next year. Sometimes, I think Stephan mentioned it, we overthink it sometimes. I think actually these are people and humans interacting, and sometimes the simplest things can actually improve people's day.
Okay.
I think we are, speaking of surveys and measuring satisfaction, there are great tools now coming up on the market where instead of asking people 30 questions about how was the toilet, how was the catering, how was etc., you just ask them how did you find the show, and then you have a system which can infer relevant information from what people have typed in just one single field. And we've tested these systems and we have actually quite good results because we compare them with real, I would say, traditional surveys, and basically the results are the same, and it's much less intrusive for the people.
That's really cool. That's really interesting. If we go back to exhibitors, but I think at the beginning of the talk we said that okay, don't pay attention to your exhibitors so much. Don't try to sell them and so on and so forth. But actually, probably as an organizer, there is some responsibility for the exhibitor. So we talked about what the matchmaking system should deliver for the organizer, what it should deliver for the visitor, but what should it deliver to the exhibitor? Because there's clearly, there's a trade show is a trade show for a reason. We're still trying to deliver value for our exhibitors.
Of course, yeah. But I think I'm not saying we shouldn't care about the exhibitors, of course. But I think we should treat them as at the same level as we do with visitors, and we should give them the tools to attract people to the stands. But we should not let them be an annoyance to our visitors. The goal of a trade show is still to let people do business, and it's for me it's as important for the visitors to do business than for the exhibitors, even if the exhibitors pay more to be there. But it's as important.
And I think, with exhibitors as well, I think it's educating them, and some of them get it already, that it's not just new leads. New leads are very important, but their customers are going to be on the show floor as well. So rather than just connecting them with new leads and new people, it's really good to connect them with people that they already know. Did you know that person's there? Did you know that person from your network's already there? Because that's a really good way of, as an organizer, selfishly, actually getting people through the door. But it's also good for exhibitors. They feel happy. They feel like you've actually listened to them. They know that you've got the right audience, and they can see their customers. So I think that's also something we focus on them driving new leads, but it's also good to get their own customers in.
Okay, yeah, cool. And do you think that this, with matchmaking sort of becoming a more integral part, I think it's becoming an essential part of the experience, because now we're in a realm where everybody sort of expects, the millennials that you referred to,
hate that
we
word.
all sort of expect personalization and a much more personalized experience. I think we're no longer happy. I mean, I think 90% of people don't open a generic email anymore. If there's nothing that catches your attention, you ignore it.
Yeah.
It's one of
But
the
they don't
thousands
even
of
see it.
emails. Yeah, exactly. Or you don't even see it. Exactly. It gets filtered out.
Yeah.
Precisely. So I think there is some evolution over time that with, the more generic matchmaking, as in we're matching people to various different things, will evolve the trade shows themselves, right? So over the next 20 years, do you think that a trade show will look different, or will it look the same but behave different?
Yeah, we know the trade shows will change. We've made a lot of studies, and that trend of festivalization of trade shows is not something that it's not just a word, it's really happening. And I think the distinction between visitors and exhibitors will slowly, not completely disappear, but dissolve a little bit with people being attendees. I was at Event Tech Live yesterday, and I discussion more with visitors than with exhibitors, actually. And so, yeah, it's going to change, and the way we do matchmaking needs to change as well, because we need to find a way to do it where people feel comfortable. And I'm not even sure we are the best people to do it, because maybe people will just use other applications. Maybe they will do a lot of their B2B matchmaking on LinkedIn before the event. And not use an event app for that.
Which is quite scary for an exhibition organizer, right? Because you're losing some level of control over an event that you are putting together.
But do you need control?
Well, that's a question, isn't it?
Do you need, Lego as a brand basically completely let go of control, and they allowed the people who enjoy Lego to make videos. They put them on YouTube, which some of them might have seen them, and they're absolutely hilarious. But they got more satisfaction from their customers, and they sold more Lego by letting go of the control. And I think, was it their film? Oh, this is a terrible example to use, but I think their film, they allowed people to submit parts of their Lego from their home, and they just basically let go of their brand, and as a result, their Lego sales have increased.
Yeah, that's a really cool example, actually. Shall we try and pick up a few questions from the audience, if we can? So, what's the top one? How can
Stephan
you matchmake everyone and keep everyone happy? How can you matchmake everyone and keep everyone happy? I don't think you can keep everyone happy, can you? There will always be someone who is not happy with whatever it is that you're doing. So I think that question is answered. What
as many people as possible happy, but everyone is impossible.
So the second question I think is interesting. What are some of the emerging technologies that you think will enhance matchmaking in the, well, not just 2019, but in the coming years? Is there something that you see a trend for that looks very promising? Algorithms
getting better all the time. They are getting incredibly accurate, given that provide them with enough data. And I think this is what's going to make matchmaking much more effective. It's going to become intelligent because let's face it, in a lot of matchmaking applications at the moment, you still have people at the back matchmaking people manually and say, maybe it's interesting that this guy meets this guy. Very few applications actually do it 100% automatically, still now. But that will change.
What do you think, Katie?
I completely agree. I think that's such a, it's sort of out of the hands of the organisers per se, and more for the tech guys to drive that. I think we're hoping that they've got the answer.
Iterative, progressive improvement of the algorithms and the data that's collected, I think will lead to just better results. Okay, and I'll take another question from the audience here. Is there an opportunity cost, do you think, of not deploying matchmaking if you're running an exhibition? Do you think it's already become the sort of essential, expected thing, or is it not right for every event?
I think it's not right for every event. We don't do matchmaking on all of our events. Obviously, we do them on selected events, and on some events people just don't want to use it. Either they have other platforms to do it. Either it's not just like they want to work. They come from some events. People go and they just want to meet the people they already know. It's just networking event, and they just get together once a year or once every 2 years and have a party together at the event, and that's it.
Okay, cool. So I think we have to wrap up.
Yes, probably one more question. We can squeeze
one
more.
Okay, let's squeeze one more question in. Let's see, what question shall we pick? What tips do you have for visitors to take away the most value from matchmaking systems?
Yep.
As an organizer.
Give us good information to work with. We really try hard not to abuse your information, but the more you give us in terms of what you like and what you really like, the best we can do in optimizing your time at the event and the people you will meet, and not try to let you see people that are not interesting to you.
And I think that Stephan put it right from the very beginning. It's communication. So when you're asking people these questions, tell them why you're asking it. Sell them the benefits. It's very basic, but I saw a really good registration form the other day that explained exactly why they were asking me these questions. And I think that's a really simple, small change. You've already got the tech there, but it's just in the communication.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think we've all encountered registration forms when you're being asked 20 questions and you really don't know why they need this information from you. What relevance does it make for the purposes of this event, or really any relationship with this company that you have? So do you either of you have any key takeaways that you think you'd like to put forward for any organizers that are here about matchmaking? I mean, what do you think matchmaking is an essential tool that should be that they should analyze whether they should look and deploy now? Is it a timing problem? Are they going to be left behind if they don't do it or don't do anything? Or do we just sit and wait?
I think at the moment it's a nice tool to have for a lot of different events, not for every event. It's not a must-have for most events. But as event format will change and people will require more personalization in their experience, within the next three years, it will probably be a must-have for most of the events.
I would say just think about your audience, think about your exhibitors, think about your visitors, and really look at the numbers, look at how they interact, and really get to know your event and know when is the right time to employ it and how you should actually deploy it.
Yeah, so for me, I think what I've taken away from all of this is that the main thing is that you look at the value that your event is offering. Why are people going to your event? And if your matchmaking system can deliver more on that promise or on that premise that there is a value proposition at the event, then great. You should deploy it. It should be a seamless part.
It should improve the experience.
Exactly.
If not, it's not a commercial tool. It is there to improve the experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, because I think we're running over a bit of
time.
Thank
you, everyone.
Thank you,
Stephan.
Stephan from
Thank
Belgium.
you, Katie. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.